is Channel 2 News at noon.
Good afternoon to you. This Monday brings word that the United States has struck again. A U.S. and allied raid yesterday took out a suspected nuclear facility just outside Baghdad. Then, early this morning, while most Americans slept, American and allied jets were launching air attacks once again, this time to destroy parts of Iraq's air defense system that had survived last week's raid. Iraq claims 3 people died in the attack on Baghdad yesterday and that 21 more were killed today. Baghdad and the government there is vowing to strike back. And President-elect Clinton issued a strong statement this morning, vowing his support for the U.S. position on Iraq. Today's attacks, the third air assault in 6 days, came in broad daylight early morning Iraqi time. The targets were in the northern and southern no-fly zones and involved Allied aircraft firing missiles and dropping bombs on radar sites, missiles, and airfields. One American flyer involved in this morning's mission spoke to Channel 2 News upon his safe return.
I really can't believe it. I mean, first of all, to go in combat and then come back home alive is exhilarating, but the effectiveness and the way the mission went today was all just really great. And from the aircraft videos that we have, we've determined that they were direct hits.
While Saddam was seen on Iraqi TV visiting Iraqi wounded, once again today in this country, there was a warning that future attacks can come unless Iraq complies with UN resolutions. Just yesterday, the U.S. fired dozens of cruise missiles at a nuclear production facility outside Baghdad, and in the process set off that city's fireworks-like air defense system in an anti-aircraft light show that went on for over an hour. In yesterday's confrontation, the U.S. also shot down an Iraqi MiG fighter in the air over Iraq. Then came a mistake. No one is absolutely sure if it was an Iraqi missile or a stray American missile, but the explosion inflicted heavy damage on the Al Rashid Hotel in central Baghdad, the traditional headquarters for visiting journalists. 2 people were killed and the hotel was severely damaged. The grieving for the victims started immediately and fueled further anti-U.S. sentiment. Now, about an hour ago, there were reports of anti-aircraft guns going off again in the skies over Baghdad, but there are no reports yet that any Allied military planes were actually in the sky. Dana.
In just 2 days, President-elect Bill Clinton inherits the crisis in the Gulf. Channel 2's Tony Guida joins us live right now from Washington with reaction there. What a week for the changing of the guard, Tony.
Well, it's a beautiful week, and it's a strange week with the combination of the celebration, the celebratory atmosphere here, and of course the strikes against Iraq, making a very difficult contrast. Bill Clinton had the perfect audience this morning for sending a strong message about Iraq. He spoke to the world community of diplomats at Georgetown University, his alma mater. Now, Clinton took some criticism recently for appearing to leave some daylight between himself and George Bush on how this country would treat Saddam Hussein. That happened in a New York Times interview. This morning, Clinton made it clear there is no daylight.
We are all mindful of the tension in Iraq and of Saddam Hussein's continuing provocations against the international community and his own people. He must understand that America's resolve during this transition period will not waver.
Within the hour, I spoke with New Jersey Senator Frank Lautenberg. Lautenberg told me he thinks President Bush is doing Bill Clinton a favor with these decisive strikes against Saddam Hussein and says that Clinton's response is sending precisely the right message.
Saddam Hussein shouldn't ever get the notion that things are going to change, that he's going to be able to interfere with the process of the transition of government.
If anything, I think Bill Clinton will be even tougher than George Bush, because Bill Clinton wants to send a signal to Saddam Hussein and any other would-be dictators that he's going to be every bit as tough as any other president has been.
Also at that speech at Georgetown University this morning, Bill Clinton took note of those who want him to focus on the economy, first of all and almost exclusively, saying in effect to them, I haven't forgotten you, but we can't have a strong foreign policy without a strong economy. I'm going to rebuild the economy. Just about this hour, Bill Clinton should be at the Shakespeare Folger Library, where they're having something called a Faces of Hope luncheon. This is a luncheon with Bill Clinton and 50 or so, I think it is precisely 50, people who touched him or moved him or somehow impressed him during the campaign. They've been invited to Washington and lunch with Bill Clinton. More of the Clinton symbolism, more of the Clinton populism. as this week progresses. Live from Washington, Tony Guida, back to the studio.
Thank you, Tony. There is the crisis in the Gulf. There's also a party going on in Washington, and Tony will be back later with a look at the inaugural celebrations in Washington, D.C. for President-elect Bill Clinton.
Now, the U.S. military action was taken to bring Iraq into line with the United Nations ceasefire agreements after the Gulf War. But so far, Saddam Hussein is still defiant. Channel 2's Troy Roberts joins us live now from the UN with an update on the situation there today. Troy?
Thank you, Brian. All along, Iraq and the UN have been at odds over Iraq's demand that the UN inspection teams use Iraqi aircraft rather than UN planes when they go in to monitor the Gulf War ceasefire accords. Well, yesterday, Iraq offered two compromise proposals. The first was that they would guarantee the UN planes safety if they would use the air corridor from Jordan. The second one was that they could fly in from Bahrain, but that came with a condition. That came in with a condition that the UN make sure that no Allied planes would be flying in the southern no-fly free zone. Well, the UN rejected both offers, as the spokesperson says, because Iraq refused to guarantee the safety of their men.
Well, we have written back to the Iraqis telling them that basically we can take care of our safety vis-a-vis the coalition aircraft. What we're seeking from Iraq is a guarantee that Iraq itself won't pose a threat to our aircraft.
The Security Council has not yet scheduled a meeting to discuss this morning's airstrike. Of course, we'll be here should there be any developments. That's it from the UN. I'm Troy Roberts reporting live. Let's go back to the studio. Dana, Brian.
Thanks, Troy. Of course, we will be following the situation in Iraq throughout the day and bring you any updates, if necessary, during the afternoon, and, of course, the latest on Channel 2 News beginning at 5 o'clock.
As we continue here at noon, a surprising revelation in the case of Katie Beers. The little girl's brother talks about the underground prison where she was held for 16 days coming up.
Also, two separate avalanches, an amazing story of survival in Norway, and a desperate search in Turkey.